I thought taste is the Pinterest, because they are the best.
Hello and welcome to 6 Minute English. I'm Alice.
And I'm Finn. Hello.
Hello, Finn. You're off on holiday tomorrow, aren't you?
I am, and you know, I'm dreading it. I hate flying.
Do you? I didn't know you had a phobia, and that means a strong and unreasonable fear of something.
Well, I don't think this is a phobia, because it isn't unreasonable. Flying thousands of feet up in the sky in a tin can, that's not safe.
Flying is safer than you think, Finn. It's much riskier to drive or cycle to work, and actually, risk-taking is the subject of today's show. Risk means the chances of something bad happening. For example, did you know that your chance of being knocked off your bicycle and killed during a 1-mile journey is the same as your chances of winning the national lottery?
You know, Alice, I didn't know that.
And this leads me on to our quiz question for today. What are the odds, what are the chances of either of these two things happening? Is it A, 1 in 4 million, B, 1 in 14 million, or C, 1 in 400 million?
I have no idea. I'll go with the big number, 1 in 400 million, C.
Okay, so we'll find out later if you're right or wrong. Now, let's listen to Andreas Wilkie, a psychologist at Clarkson University in New York, talking about why we're bad at assessing risk.
People typically fear anything which is small probability, but it's extremely catastrophic if it were to happen. Think about dying in a plane crash. Think about a nuclear meltdown from the nearby power plant. Recently, we have another increase in these MERS virus outbreaks in South Korea. People read about that, and they may pay a lot of attention to that in the news, but they may forget to get their flu shot.
That was Andreas Wilkie from Clarkson University, and we heard that a small probability of something happening means it's unlikely to happen. But we worry about big or catastrophic events such as catching bird flu or dying in a plane crash because we have a gut reaction to them. In other words, we react emotionally. A catastrophic event is something that causes a huge amount of damage and suffering.
And it's often because of media coverage, for example, watching the news and reading the newspapers, that it can be difficult for us to understand how likely certain things are to happen. Catastrophic events feel like very real threats, while we tend to forget about the small but chronic risks that become more likely over time.
We do. Chronic means something that lasts for a long time. So, for example, what if there was a cigarette that killed you as soon as you smoked it? Nobody would do that, would they?
No, they wouldn't.
But plenty of people are happy to smoke for years and put off worrying about the health risks for the future.
Yes, that's a good point, Finn. People feel they are in control of risks that stretch over time. They think, I could stop tomorrow, or I could smoke less. But what about people who enjoy taking big risks? Those thrill seekers out there.
People who enjoy extreme sports actually seek out danger. It gives them extreme pleasure. So let's listen to Karina Hollekim from Norway. She's a base jumper. That's a person with a parachute who leaps from tall buildings or cliffs, and she's talking about what she feels about risk.
You need to measure the pleasure. Is it going to be worth it for you? So if the risk is really high, it means that the pleasure needs to be equally high, or hopefully even higher. You can't measure it on a scale or anything. For me, it's a stomach feeling. It's the value within me, and I'm the only one who can tell what value it has to me.
Yes, it must be a magical feeling to step off a cliff, mustn't it, Finn?
It's a stomach feeling. My stomach would definitely be saying, oh, no. So why not change the subject and tell me the answer to today's quiz question?
I asked, what are your chances of being knocked off your bicycle and killed during a 1-mile journey? And this is the same as your chances of winning the national lottery. So, is it A, 1 in 4 million, B, 1 in 14 million, or C, 1 in 400 million?
I said C, 1 in 400 million.
Yes, and you were wrong,
Oh,
Finn.
right, really? Okay.
Yes, the odds are actually 1 in 14 million. Yes, you are as likely to win the national lottery from a single ticket as you are to be knocked off your bicycle and killed during a 1-mile journey. This statistic comes from the Professor David Spiegelhalter, who is Winton Professor of the Public Understanding of Risk in the Statistical Laboratory at the University of Cambridge in the UK. So I think he really knows his stuff.
That's a very long title. Yes, I'm sure he does.
Yep.
So let's hear today's words once again, Alice.
Here they are. Phobia, risk, probability, gut reaction, catastrophic, media coverage, chronic, thrill seekers, base jumper. And that brings us to the end of today's 6-Minute English. We hope you were thrilled by today's program. Please join us again soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
6-Minute English from the BBC.
My photo taste is the Pinterest because they are the best. Flick to link, link to flick.
Anything that was going to help me get better, I would accept.
So that afternoon, Jen walked out of her neurologist's office, determined to get better. The doctors she'd been seeing were saying, just try exercising. So she decided to fight her physical pain and walk home.
And as soon as I walked through the door, I collapsed and I couldn't get up for 4 months. That was kind of this big gaining moment for me because up until that point I would get sick and then I would get better. But I've never been the same since that walk home. I've never been any better than I was that day.
There's a pretty good chance that you might know somebody or have heard of somebody like Jen Brea. Her story isn't all that uncommon because there are still so many unanswered questions in medicine. Diseases we don't understand, others we can't cure, at least not yet. So today on the show, we're going to explore some of the ideas out there about getting better. How doctors, researchers, and even patients are trying to change medicine to find better answers.
What I was grappling with felt so big and so terrifying that I wouldn't survive it. The fact that other people had gone through that and had survived gave me hope that I would be able to find a way.
We're going to come back to Jen Brea later in the show and find out how she eventually got the right diagnosis. But first, how do you even begin to diagnose a chronic condition that is impossible to see or even measure? So can you describe like a typical patient that comes to see you?
The typical patient who comes to our clinic has seen 2 or 3 doctors before they've come to us. They've seen their pediatrician or their family doctor, and when nothing's working, they come to us.
This is Elliot Crane. He's a pediatric anesthesiologist.
What I do predominantly at the present time is pain management for children.
Now, most of us think of pain as a symptom of an injury or an illness. But Elliot's patients are children with chronic pain, pain that lasts a lot longer than it should.
Our typical patient has had their problem for 6 months to multiple years. They're missing school. They're not going out and playing with their friends. They're not going to the mall on weekends. Their lives are completely off the rails.
And a lot of these kids did have something that caused the pain at first.
But after that problem that caused the pain goes away, it heals, the pain doesn't go away. The nerves have changed. The nervous system has rewired itself, even though the inciting problem is long gone.
And in those cases, he says, pain? It's the TED Radio Hour from NPR. I'm Guy Raz. And on the show today, ideas about the 5 senses: smell, touch, taste, sight, and sound. And though we might think our senses help us experience reality as it is, most of the signals they send are personal and highly subjective. And it means the way each of us perceives the world around us is unique. So, let's start with sound. I want to play sound for you, Wanda. Can you tell me what this is?
That is a GRB, right?
What's a GRB?
It's a gamma ray burst.
This is Wanda Diaz Merced. She's an astronomer.
I'm from Puerto Rico.
And that sound she just described, the gamma ray burst, that would become a key that unlocked a whole world that was closed off to Wanda. And the story of how that happened starts when she was about 19. Wanda was a student at a college in Maine where she was super into science.
I was doing my physics and my mathematics, but at the back of my head, my thought was, I will become a doctor, like a general practitioner.
But around this time, Wanda started having problems. In the mornings in class, her friends would ask her why her hair wasn't done quite right. She also started tripping a lot. She'd have scrapes all over her knees. So she went to see a doctor.
When I go to the doctor in Maine, it's because I'm already having blind spots. So,
You just start to notice blind spots in your visual field?
Yes.
Wanda was born with diabetes, and it turned out, because of a rare complication, the disease was slowly destroying her retinas.
And then we began the treatment and so on and so forth.
But the treatment was just delaying the inevitable. By the time Wanda turned 29, she was completely blind. But all this time, she never abandoned her passion for physics and math. And even though she gave up on the idea of becoming a doctor, she found another passion, which was astronomy. And Wanda decided she wanted to study the cosmos. But as she explained on the TED stage, her blindness made it impossible for her to read any astronomical data.
On the left, you will be seeing...
Wanda showed a series of data points plotted on a graph, which was data from a dying star.
Early during my career, I could also see this kind of plot. But then I lost my sight, and with it, I lost the opportunity to see this plot. And professionally, it left me without a way to do my science. I longed to access and scrutinize this energetic light and figure out the astrophysical cause. I wanted to experience the specious wonder, the excitement, the joy produced by the detection of such a titanic celestial event.
And this is the point in Wanda's story where she began to find hope.
I had a very good mentor. His name is Robert Candy at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. He was the one who brought me to my first internship, and he was the one who...
Wanda says Robert Candy just saw her blindness differently. He challenged her to come up with a way for blind researchers to get more familiar with some of NASA's astronomical data.
And I said, I'm not going to just get familiarized with the data. I want to do science. I want to do some physics.
What Wanda realized was that the graphs of data most scientists look at, those are just numbers put to a page, plotted out over time, the rise and fall from left to right. And so what if, she wondered, what if she could instead plot that same data into sound, rising and falling, but in pitch? So with a lot of hard work and some computer programming, she did. This, believe it or not, is the sound of radiation from a star. On a graph, it would look just like a squiggly line. Lots of data points, some spikes higher than others. And Wanda found a way to turn those spikes into noise.
A lot of spikes going up and down.
And so just like sighted researchers, Wanda was able to study a graph and listen for data points out of normal range. When she hears those sounds, she knows she's found something important in the data.
Because when I'm observing or when I'm listening, it's like a vigilance task. I keep vigilant for the unexpected.
So after Wanda did this for the first time, she analyzed her results and then she nervously brought them to her mentor.
I sent him an email and my legs were shaking. And when he told me that he thought that I was right and to move it ahead, and then linked me to other professionals to continue moving the research forward, to me was like an epiphany. I achieved access to the data, and today I'm able to do physics at the level of the best astronomer using sound. And what people have been able to do, mainly visually, for hundreds of years, now I do it using sound. Listening to these gamma ray bursts that you're seeing on the screen. Now I'm going to play the burst for you. It's not music, it's sound. This is scientific data converted into sound and is mapped in pitch. The process is called sonification.
It's actually beautiful. It's a beautiful sound. Can you...
Yes.
What does a gamma ray look like in space? I mean, no one has ever seen it, a sighted person or a person without sight, but we can all probably imagine what it looks like based on the data, right?
It will look, or it will feel as a beam of energy. It's a massive outburst of energy in one direction, so massive that I don't think any eye would be able to resist such a view. Your retina will detach instantly if you see that kind of brilliance.
So, don't get me wrong, I mean, the sound of the gamma ray burst is beautiful, but I have a hard time hearing the data in it.
Yes. In Buddhism, there's a saying that says that the voice does the Buddha's work, right? It conveys the heart.
Yeah.
So when you hear these sounds, it's like listening to someone talking to you. When I hear someone talking, and I guess most blind people and people that are not visually oriented, they can tell if the person is sad or if something has happened to that person, if the person is angry, etc. It's the same thing with this sound. And you feel that something is being communicated to you, that you're just perceiving it, and it makes me feel good. It makes me feel great. The body is something changeable. Anyone may develop a disability at any point. And let's think about, for example, scientists that are already at the top of their careers. What happens to them if they develop a disability? Information access empowers us to flourish. When we give people the opportunity to succeed without limits, that will lead to personal fulfillment and prospering life. And I think that the use of sound in astronomy is helping us to achieve that and to contribute to science. I think that science is for everyone. It belongs to the people, and it has to be available to everyone because we are all natural explorers. I dream on a level scientific playing field where people encourage and respect each other, where people exchange strategies and discover together. If people with disabilities are allowed into the scientific field, an explosion, a huge titanic burst of knowledge will take place, I am sure. That is the Titanic burst. Thank you. Thank you.
Astronomer Wanda Diaz Merced. You can see her full talk at TED.com. On the show today, ideas?
Flick to link, link to flick. My photo taste is the Pinterest because they are the best.
Hello and welcome to 6 Minute English. I'm Alice.
And I'm Finn. Hello.
Hello, Finn. You're off